I think so often of when I was pregnant, and see, I'll get choked up just thinking about it. I don't know how I ever got through that. It was, it was just awful for me. I was just 15 and you were 17, and I didn't even realize I was pregnant for a while. I just knew I didn't get my period, but I'd heard that you get sick, you get morning sickness and things like that. I never threw up, I never felt sick. There was no physical changes. So when month after month, came, and I told you, and
Well, you're not showing, you're not having these symptoms. Maybe you thought you really weren't pregnant. You hope eternal for
I
springs eternal for not being pregnant with
well,
something else.
exactly. Well, I was in denial for so long, but I did tell you because I was scared, but I loved your reaction. I was afraid. I thought maybe you'd say, well, you're on your own and it's too bad, and blah blah blah. But I mean, you were wonderful. You said you were happy, and you thought, oh, well, just get married.
Yeah.
That'll be, hey, no problem.
Yeah, it's really easy. People do it all the time. They have babies and they get married.
Right.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong were my parents.
The eternal optimist. So
Right. But getting through those months, I just lived in terror. I couldn't sleep. I was afraid. I kept thinking people were going to find out, because the only person I told was Anita and her mom, and they were wonderful. But as time went on, I don't know how, but they found out at school. And did I ever tell you that I was called down to the nurse's office? And
how would they find out?
I don't know. That's what I never did find out. I don't know. But the nurse called me down. I was about 3 months pregnant, I guess. And she said, there's a rumor going on that you're pregnant. And no, that's crazy. And then another month went by, and the gym teacher called me in. And this was the end of the year. I was a sophomore. And then summer came. Now, I'm 4 months pregnant, and I didn't show or anything. And I really think it was because I was so terrified that I didn't start showing. And then I went back to school in September, and I was called down to the gym teacher again, and she was so nasty, and she said, that there's a rumor. And I was insisting. I mean, there was no way I was going to admit to that. But apparently at that point, the word got out, and like I said, I don't know how, but it did. And then I got to 6 months pregnant, and I was starting to get a little chubby. And then my mother said to me, 6 months, she said, I haven't bought you any Kotex in a while, and so I knew at this point I had to tell her, because the baby was moving already. And I mean, I like I said, I lived in terror. And I lived in denial. And the only thing that was getting me through at that point was that I daydreamed all the time. And I had this dream of a wonderful house that we lived in. And I had the house decorated. And I thought of you as my husband and having the baby. And that was the only thing that got me through. I daydreamed all through school, through classes, at night. I just lived in this fantasy because I just couldn't accept. I was so scared. Because I knew my parents were going to kill me. So I felt the longer I don't tell them, the longer it takes for them to find out. The longer I'll be alive, because I thought sure they were going to kill me. But then when my mom asked me that, because you kept saying, you have to tell them. And I mean, I knew they were going to have to be told, but so that was the time I said, I can't go any longer. And I told them, and actually, it was Halloween. I remember that, it was Halloween. And when I told my mom, she was furious. But you know, you would think if you're telling your mother that you're pregnant, that the mother would say, "Oh, are you okay?" or something like that, or even, "Who's the father?" You know what she said? "Do any of my friends know?" That's all she cared about. Do any of my friends know? And then eventually she got around to "Who's the father?" And of course that went over like crazy. And my dad was traveling all the time. I was left with my mom. Anyway, she went right to the phone and called him. And I remember she gave me the phone, and my dad just was so disappointed. He said, "How could you do this?" And anyway, it was awful. And then the doorbell started ringing. So I started going and handing out, you know, goodie bags to the kids in the costumes. And anyway, I went to school the next day. And then when I came home, my father, oh my gosh, my father was home. So then he drove home, and I had to face the two of them. Anyway, they sat me down, and they said, "You are not leaving this house. You are not leaving the house. Don't go by the windows. You don't want to open the door to anybody. You know, we don't want anybody seeing you." And they told me that they were going to put me in a home for unwed mothers was what they were called back then.
Because they wanted to hide you away. They wanted to make sure your friends and neighbors didn't know your condition.
Oh, absolutely. That's what they were terrified of.
That was their main concern.
Yep, exactly. And so it took 2 weeks before I got to go. I couldn't wait to go. I just wanted to get out of the house. And I wasn't feeling sick. And now that they knew, I started, you know, getting a bit of a belly. I was 6 months pregnant. And so they took me into New York, and it was a place called Inwood House on East 82nd Street in Manhattan. And I brought, you know, my little suitcase, and I brought my guitar, and I brought my paints, because I was painting then. I had my easel and my box of paints. And we went in, and as soon as I walked in, I was like, "Oh, I love this place." It was just a beautiful old, like, just an old building in New York, but beautifully, the woodwork was beautiful, stained glass. It was beautiful, and I saw all these girls that were pregnant, and I saw, "Oh my God, this is wonderful," you know. Anyway, my parents left. I was so happy. I had my own little room. It was this tiny, tiny little room with a twin bed, one little dresser, a desk, and a little teeny tiny closet. And I was in heaven because I was on my own. My parents were gone. I was so relieved, and I think that night my belly, you know, grew like 3 sizes. And then I got to meet the girls. And I think there were about 30 girls, ranging from 20 to, I don't know, 40, something like that. But since I was 16 now, and I was kind of like a mascot, and I was taken under their wing. And I met this one girl who was Andy, her name was, and she was in college, and she played guitar and she sang and everything. And anyway, I gravitated toward her, and she got me through. She got me through the whole time. And we would go down. It was a Christmas time, and we'd go down to Macy's on the bus, and we'd walk around, and we went to the Met. We were just a couple blocks from the Metropolitan Museum, so we would go there during the day. And I just thought it was wonderful until Saturdays. Saturdays were visitation day. And of course my parents came to see me, and it would just be awful because they'd be sitting there with my belly, and I was just so ashamed. And, you know, they would sit there with scowls on their face, and, you know, my mother's pickle face.
Oh, yeah.
You know the pickle face, yeah. Well, that was... You know, and I would just be waiting until they left, and I was like, oh, sigh of relief. And
how long did they stay? Did you guys just talk there? Did you go out to lunch?
No, they had a big, beautiful sitting room. It was a big, like, living room, and all the girls would sit around with their friends or their family or whatever, and everybody'd be laughing and having a wonderful time, and I'm sitting there, dying, and I don't remember. I'm sure we had conversation, but it was miserable, and but I was so happy there. I know that might sound strange, but I was with girls who were going through what I was going through, and I got to play guitar with Andy, and I was painting at night in my little room, and I had radio, and you know how I love music. I always have music on all the time, and so I'd be listening to radio all night long, and that was, that was the top 20, and
Cousin Brucey.
Cousin Brucey, that's right.
WABC.
And I still have, I call them my Inwood House songs, and I'll hear them on the radio, and I go right back to that little room every time I hear them. And I know some of the songs you really think are corny.
Let me guess, Love Child.
Love Child, it's
Love
true.
Child.
It was Love Child. Which is like putting a stake in my heart. And then my favorite was Wichita Lineman.
Yeah,
That just, I play that all the time on. But those two, and there were other ones, but those two, and Dion, Abraham, Martin, and John, those were the ones that I hear now, and I just, like I said, I go back to my little room, and but you were very sick at that time.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
And I was homeless.
You're homeless.
And sick, penniless, and had not much going on in my life.
Right.
And plus, it was November and December. It was really cold in New York.
Yeah, and I remember you just had a thin little jacket. You didn't have any gloves, no hat, scarf, nothing like that. And you were sick, and you'd come to visit me, and
as a result, it wasn't like I could take you out on a date because I had no money. So we used to go to free places. We used to go to the museums and places like that so that we could be together, and it wouldn't cost a whole lot of money. The best place we used to go to, remember, we used to go all the way down 5th until we got to the Frick.
To the Frick. Oh,
The Frick had a wonderful pool in the middle of the
that
foyer.
courtyard with the trees
Yeah.
and the pool.
And we used to sit there,
Yeah.
and we had no future, really. We didn't know what we were going to do. All we hoped for was a better tomorrow. We used to sit there huddled, warm, because it was inside. It's before they started charging for the museums.
Right.
And it was a place of refuge.
Well, I remember sitting on a bench, kind of what we're doing right
Yeah,
now, and we would just
Huddle and
sit and hold hands, and I'd cry,
we faced an uncertain future. Really didn't know what was going to unfold.
Yeah.
It was really a tough time.
And you even, was this before you went to my parents, or it was during, right?
During, yeah.
Yeah.
During.
Yep, and you went. I remember I was so excited you were going to go, and
Well, I'm an eternal optimist. I figured I could just go and talk your parents into liking me, and everything be hunky-dory.
well, you wanted to do the right thing.
Of course.
Right from the beginning
Of
you
course.
did.
So
Yeah. But of course,
we'll
that
have to
didn't work
find
out.
out how that meeting went. Obviously not too good.
No.